Hey, everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget, Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even loved and enjoyed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes, Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Girls Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music, and now playing on HamiltonRadio.net, Diamonds FM, Oldies Radio, and a few networks coming soon. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, and hoodies, and also baseball gear and more. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Ones, Wrinkles, Victims of Shame, and also check out the merchandise section, T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, and also phone cases as well, too. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. I'll support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, themikewagnershow.com. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com at the Mike Wagner Show. Make sure you do so today. We're here with a terrific gentleman from San Diego, California. He's a serial entrepreneur, founder of Schlegel Consulting, and implemented a team, effective strategies at Hewlett Packard, also New Tech and Accelero. We'll talk about that. He's also lived and worked in Japan. He also speaks some Japanese. Don't be surprised if he throws a few sentences here and there. He's also former director of engineering for multiple tech companies, and he has a new book talking about how unique strengths that each type brings to problem solving, as well as underlying motivations, leadership characteristics, and other key traits, and applies to each dynamic. And we're going to talk about the book Teamwork 9.0, live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios, along the San Francisco Bay, from San Diego, California to the Bay. The serial entrepreneur, founder of Schlegel Consulting, and the author of Teamwork 9.0, professional use of the Enneagram, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Matt Schlegel. Matt, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for that terrific introduction, Mike. I'm flattered.
Well, it's great to have you on board. But before we begin, what is actually an Enneagram?
Well, that's a great question. So the Enneagram is often known as a personality system, and you can think of other systems like Myers-Briggs, DISC, Strength Finders. If you've worked in corporate America, you've likely encountered these. And Enneagram is often classified as one of those systems as well. It has 9 distinct types. And you can use it. It's a very, very powerful system for understanding internal motivations and interactions between your teammates.
That's very interesting. We'll talk more about the book. You've been through that yourself, a serial entrepreneur, founder of Schlegel Consulting. You also lived and worked in Japan, and maybe you can just utter a few Japanese phrases for us.
Konnichiwa. O genki desu ka? Have you been to Japan before?
No, but I had a couple of friends of mine that went there. One was in radio, and one had their parents teaching in the mission, but I would love to go there too. So it's just like, sounds fascinating. Maybe you can teach us a bit of Japanese in the meantime. So
yeah, there you go. Well, I just said, hello, how are you?
And how do we respond in Japanese?
You could just say, you could almost repeat back the same thing. You could say, konnichiwa, genki desu.
Konnichiwa, genki desu.
Yes.
Okay, I'll practice it later as well, too.
Okay.
And of course, yeah.
It took me a few years to get to there.
And of course, it's going to take some practice too. And before we talk about your book, Teamwork 9.0 and everything else, Matt, tell us how you first got started.
Well, I started out as an engineering student, went into an engineering career. And along the way, my boss came to me and said, "Hey, Matt, I want you to lead a team." And I'm like, "I know nothing about leading teams. I only know about leading electrons." And he says, "Fine, you'll be fine. Don't worry." And knowing me, I wasn't fine. I was worried. So I just started studying everything I can get my hands on related to teamwork and leadership. And I took it to heart to, try to do a good job in this new role that I was being asked to do. And along the way, I encountered this system called the Enneagram. And by the time I came to the Enneagram, I'd already encountered the Myers-Briggs and DISC. And as I go through those systems, I have this very analytical, skeptical mind, and I take apart these systems and I put them back together. I figure out what works and what doesn't work. And so when I got to the Enneagram, I'm like, no matter how much I took it apart, it's like, wow, this is amazing. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And not only that, it's just terrifically effective. Better than any of the other systems that I had used with my teams. It really, got to kind of the core underlying motivation of what was going on. And my teammates could really relate to what their Enneagram style was telling them. And they were learning about themselves in a way that they hadn't even appreciated. And I certainly had that same experience as well.
And how's the Enneagram different from the Rorich and also the Myers-Briggs and the other tests as well, too? What sets it apart from the other personality test that's out there, too? And especially us, it's like, it was a Myers-Briggs and Rorschach and others were like, that was popular back then up until now.
Right. So, one of the things that I think really sets it apart is the dynamicism in it. And what I mean by that is that, we all change over time and even within a day we can have different stressors or be relaxed and our behaviors will change over the day, over the week, over the months, over the years. And the Enneagram actually speaks to how that changes. And when you look at the Enneagram diagram, you can see it's a circle and it has a bunch of lines in the middle of it. And those lines are, giving us some clues as to, how our behaviors will change depending on whether we're in a stress situation or we're in a relaxed situation. So for instance, I'm type 6. So my starting point is that 6 style. But when I get stressed, I respond, I get anxious. And so my anxiety starts to come up and I start to get very focused on getting stuff done. I create checklists and I just check stuff off and I get all this stuff done. And as I get stuff done, my anxiety goes down. Well, what that looks like in terms of the Enneagram is I move over to the type 3 when I'm in that stress state, and and the type 3 is often known as the achiever. And so I get really, focused and achieving a lot. And then when I get relaxed, I move towards the 9, and the 9 is often called the harmonizer. And so I just become relaxed and listening and just making sure everybody gets along. So, the Enneagram will describe, how I change depending on my stress level. And each one of those 9 types has a distinct movement, from stress to unstress that speaks to them. And that's one of the really powerful things I love about the Enneagram.
So the Enneagram is based on how much stress level you have, actually. So was it like 1 is having like high stress and 9 is like low stress? It's like I see you have helper, achiever, innovator, investigator, and peacemaker, and all that. Is that like stress level going from like 1 to 9, like ascending or descending?
Actually, we can get back to the numbers and why the Enneagram is numbers, but every type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 will be relaxed or stressed, but they respond to stress or non-stress in a unique way. So that's what the Enneagram is saying, is that, if I'm a type 1 and I get really stressed, then I start to move towards the type 4 and I kind of get more emotional. Whereas when I'm relaxed, I move towards the type 7, and then I kind of start becoming, happy go lucky, looking for fun things to do. And so it's so each type has that unique movement in it.
Mhm. So in other words, you can pretty much just bounce around, like saying from type 1 to type 3 to type 5 and everything else just throughout the day. So it's not definitive, unlike you have the Meyer-Briggs test and the other test where it's like you have this, have that, and pretty much defines you, and no questions asked. That's what it sounds like. You just bounce all over with the Enneagram.
Yeah, you can, and every type has greater ease or less ease of access to the other types, right? So, for instance, as a type 6, I've already told you I have access to the 3 and the 9. I also have very easy access to the types on either side of my type, which is, they're often called the wings, so the 5 and the 7. But I have less ease of access to some of the other types, right? And this is what I talk about in the book as well, is like, you understand your strengths and where what roles that you can easily go into to complement your team, and then which ones are going to be harder for you. And so when you surround yourself with complementary teammates, then you can all have access to these different points. And then getting back to your question about the numbers, and this was my big epiphany of the Enneagram. There's a lot of books out there about the Enneagram. Why do I need to write one? Well,
Mhm.
I asked the question, why are the Enneagram types numbers? And why are they in that order? Like, why couldn't the 1 be the 3 or the 3 be the 8, And it turns out they're numbers for a reason, and they're in that order for a reason, because it's exactly the order in which humans solve problems.
Oh, wow. From 1 to 9. Amazing.
Yes. And so the Enneagram is also the human problem solving process.
Huh. Interesting.
Steps 1 through 9. And that's really the crux of my book, was to essentially shed light on this aspect of the Enneagram that isn't well understood in most of the Enneagram literature. And so now, once you understand that, it's a problem solving process. So where am I in problem solving? I can look and see what step I'm in. And then now you know which personality dynamic is exactly tuned for that step in problem solving. And then once you understand that, and you're managing a team, that teams solve problems, right? I mean, at the base of it, that's what you have your team do: solve problems. And so when you're
Exactly.
going through the problem solving process, you can see, where is my team? What's my team really good at? Oh, okay, well, I understand that now. I have those dynamics on the team. Where's my team, not doing as well? I need more of that dynamic in order to, complement the team and help them get all the way around the circle of problem solving.
That is so interesting. And we'll talk more with Matt Schlegel of Teamwork 9.0 and how I got started. But first, listen to Mike Wagner's show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention Mike Wagner's show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews, and Eve 11 enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com and over 40 podcast platforms heard in over 100 countries. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia for great books like Missing, Ones, Wrinkles, Victims of Shame, also merchandise and more. Amazon.com. Check out the Mia Zia store. And don't forget to support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com at the Mike Wagner Show. Make sure you do so today. We're Hero Serial Entrepreneur, founder of Schlegel Consulting, and the author of Teamwork 9.0, professional use of the Enneagram here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we get back to the book, you were the former director of engineering for a number of tech companies. You also worked in Japan. And tell us about some of your experience. Now, did these also apply with the Enneagram, or was that before that?
I came to the Enneagram kind of, midway through my career. And, so it was just really nice to, encounter that tool just as part of my growing experience and learning more about how to make my teams effective. But yeah, we went to Japan well before that. Pretty much right out of school, and lived there for 3 years, and then returned back to the Bay Area, which is where both my wife and I are from. And by that time we had kids and we wanted to be near the grandparents. And so we just settled here and have been here ever since.
Wow, it's amazing. And when you lived in Japan, did they apply the Enneagram over there too, or?
There's not when I was there, it was not used widely that I know of. I know there are some books that have been translated, into Japanese, but I haven't worked with Japanese clients on the Enneagram. But I have a colleague who does quite a bit of work on, with Japanese companies, and she is introducing the Enneagram there, so I'm supporting her in that.
That's rather interesting too. And the Enneagram also goes way back when, and of course, a nice little interesting history about it, going back to 1915. So I guess that's been around for a while and finally discovered. That's so amazing.
Well, actually, it has roots back for several thousand years.
Wow.
Yeah, and the fellow that I think you're mentioning, Gurdjieff, he discovered all of this, ancient wisdom about the Enneagram, and then he brought it into the West, and then it got picked up by a psychologist named Oscar Ichazo in the 50s, and he's the one who developed the Enneagram into what we know of now as that personality system, where he really focused on the personality dynamics. And then, a bunch of, work was done in the 60s and 70s on it, and really, flushed out the personality side of the system. But actually going back to some of those earlier works like Gurdjieff, he does talk about the Enneagram as this kind of process or this flow that happens in nature. And that's why, he talks about that, the order of the numbers. And so it was going back to some of those earlier works where I really, got these great ideas about, bringing this up in as a human problem solving process as well.
That's rather interesting. And what first prompted you to write Teamwork 9.0?
Well, it was just the success I was having. Once, the success of just using the Enneagram with the team as a personality system. And then I started to use it as a problem solving system with teams, and just, taking a team through that process was just so amazing to see how the team came together to solve problems that they didn't think they could solve, and do it in a way that caused the solutions to be very effective and lasting. And I did a number of these, when I was working at a company, when I was just first starting to work with it. And it was so effective, I decided to branch out and start a consulting practice around it. Did that for a number of years. And then I said, I really got to get this out into the world. And so I committed to writing the book and getting that out.
And also too that you also mentioned helper, achiever, individualist, investigator, enthusiast, challenger, peacemaker, and more as well too. And what would you say is probably the most rarest trait that you have among like these the nine factors in there? Like you have the sub ones like successful, adaptable, innovative, creative, and all that. What do you think is like the rarest trait that you see in there, or the rare sub trait?
That's a great question, and I don't know. The short answer is I don't know. Because I see all types all the time. If you just had to ask me, I would say that I would just assume that it's a pretty even distribution. But what you do find is that certain types are drawn to certain vocations. So, when say you're going to think about nurses,
Yes.
nurses, I've done workshop for nurses where well over half of them are the type 2 helper,
Hmm.
right? Because twos are drawn to that vocation. When I'm working with my clients' companies, I'll find like CEOs are often type 8. I'll find CFOs are often type 1. Now, it doesn't mean that a CEO can't be another type, and of course they can. It's just you find a lot of type 8s in CEO roles and a lot of type 1s in CFO roles. So our type does make us inclined to pursue certain vocations. One, because we're just naturally gifted in that role, and we can do a great job at it. It's essentially like our superpower to be able, it's very easy for us. For the type 6, my type, my brain is always thinking about the future. My brain is just always thinking about, what if this happens? What if that happens? I live in the future. And so I'm really good at planning and thinking ahead and thinking about what's going to happen. And I'm just very well tuned for that. So you see a lot of project managers as 6s, because that's what a lot of project managers do, is plan ahead.
It
So
made me think of the movie Back to the Future. We go back to the future.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, and so you get companies with certain Enneagram type styles. You get even nations with certain Enneagram type styles, and you can see that. But even though you might have a culture that is more inclined towards a certain style, underneath, you get the full spread of Enneagram types, in my experience.
So basically, like with you talk about the nations, like with Americans, going a certain way, or Japanese going a certain way. What do you think is like the most unique path in terms of like either profession or country with the Enneagram? Like say maybe Sweden, Finland, or maybe Thailand or Iceland or anything like that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say. I know there's been some work done on, kind of looking at the Enneagram types of certain, countries. So, I mean, if you just take the U.S. and Canada as an example, right?
Mhm.
Very different cultures, right? Very different styles. And, I have a friend who is from Canada, and he is a type 8, and which is the asserter.
Mhm.
And he tells me how when he lived in Canada, he felt a little out of place, because being assertive isn't really promoted in Canada. He thinks Canada is more of a type 9 harmonizer
Mhm.
culture. And he just feels more comfortable being in America, because he thinks America is a type 8, more assertive culture. And
Hmm.
so I thought that was an interesting observation as well.
That is rather interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's like Canada is more of type 9 harmony, and
Yeah.
type 8 would be assertive in the United States. And what would you say Japan? What type would that be? Or maybe the neighboring states, like or countries like say Thailand or even like Australia or something. Maybe just some observations. What type would they be?
Right. Well, I lived in Japan, and as a type 6, I really felt comfortable in that environment, because they create sixes like a lot of predictability, and everything about the culture is very predictable. You say something, what somebody's going to say back to you.
Mm-hmm.
All the trains, they run like, if the train is 1 minute off schedule, you will
Uh-huh.
get an apology. The
I thought they'd be
conductor
going,
will apologize to you. I am so sorry we're 1 minute late. So like, if you want to be in a culture that is very predictable, so I would say, Japan definitely has some, a strong type 6 culture. It has other things as well. But I felt very comfortable there. And then it was very different. I did a lot of work in China as well. And I found that, working with the Chinese, you know, all of that predictability isn't as important as just being helpful. So they were just always very attentive and just wanting to help you. What do you want done? What do you want done? And that's more of a type 2 culture. So I kind of get I had the feeling that the Chinese culture might be a little more type 2. So you start to get these flavors in the culture of what's important to them, and that's also reflected in an Enneagram style.
Mhm. It sounds like there's not a lot of conflict and everything else. It can also be resolved too. And what about like entertainers, athletes, or along those lines? What do you think the Enneagram would fall on?
Yeah, again, every sport probably has a type that is more attractive to to that sport. So this friend I was mentioning, who's from Canada, he actually played professional basketball
Oh, really?
for the Greek national team,
Oh, great,
and
interesting.
he said that there's a lot of eights in basketball. It's a very assertive, very aggressive style of play. And so he found that there were quite a bit of eights in that. He says, baseball, probably mostly fives,
Hmm.
which is the observer. But you have to be very patient in baseball, and fives are probably the most patient type. And so so I could see a lot of fives being drawn to baseball, and on and on and on, right? So each sport is going to draw a certain style that would be very conducive to that type.
How about football and hockey?
Um, you know, I, in my experience watching them, I would see that, a lot of both of those are very aggressive sports. So I would imagine the eights would be very drawn to those. I think just the intensity of those, both football and hockey, that really high intensity really speaks to that type 8 energy. So I would think that there would be quite a lot of type 8s in those sports.
That's rather interesting. And what can people get from the book Teamwork 9.0?
Come again?
What can the reader get out of the book with
Oh,
Teamwork
what can they
9.0?
get out of the book? Yeah, so I do a brief overview of the Enneagram, but then I dive right into explaining how the Enneagram can be used as a problem-solving system. And then I go into, talking about, how you can make your team very effective moving through problem solving, which types are going to be able to step into roles as you move around in problem solving, and which types won't. And one of the things about, problem solving systems that I've seen is that usually they minimize the human emotional aspect of problem solving. They
Hmm.
become very analytical and they become very dry. But problem solving actually is a very emotional process that humans go through. And this is another thing that I really like about the Enneagram view of this, is because it speaks directly to steps 2, 3, and 4 are emotional steps.
Huh.
They are the emotional part of problem solving. Like, who cares about the problem? Who has an emotional connection and wanting to solve the problem? That's step 2. What kind of ideas do I get out of that caring? That's step 3. And then what's my emotional reaction to these ideas? That's step 4. And what I find is most problem solving systems really they acknowledge the step 3 of getting the ideas, but they don't acknowledge all of the emotions that allow those ideas to emerge, whereas the Enneagram specifically does. So I go into that and then help people appreciate the value of allowing you to work through the emotional part to get to the analytical side, which is where I start, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm an engineer. I'm in 6, which is in the head group. So I'm in my head most of the time. And, when I was doing engineering and I'm working with electrons, it was quite easy for me, right? Because there's a problem and I'm going to design a circuit to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what the rules of how electrons behave. And so I can just say, okay, I'll just be an electron. What would I
There
do
you
if
go.
I
Yeah, I
operated with
love
these
that
rules?
idea. You be the whatever. That's
Right.
right. Yeah.
Right. But then when you get to teams, I realized, it's not just cut and dry, rules, analytical rules for how teams work. There is this whole emotional component to getting a team to work. And I think the Enneagram speaks to that better than any other system I've ever encountered. So, that's what I hope readers will get out of the book. Plus, just a real practical usage of the book, of that system to help their teams be more effective.
And that's very interesting as well, too. And Matt, where can we find the book at?
You can find it on Amazon, Teamwork 9.0.
Certainly amazing. And what's coming up for Matt Schlegel, we'll find out just 1 minute. You listen to the Mike Widener Show at the MikeWidenerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Also brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Widener Show, international war-ring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with the author of Teamwork 9.0, Matt Schlegel, after this time. We're back with the author, Matt Schlegel, of Teamwork 9.0, professional use of the Enneagram here on the Mike Widener Show. Learned a lot about the Enneagram, and I'm going to apply that as well today. I'll try to get my teammates, which is my family, to use that. And what can we expect me in 2022 and beyond, Matt?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. One, I just want to offer, I do, if you go to my website, evolutionaryteams.com, there is a complimentary Enneagram assessment there that everybody is welcome to take and start that journey of understanding your Enneagram type. Usually when most people take the test, they will find that they score highly on 2 or 3 types. And you just use that as a starting point, use it as a process of elimination, and then think about the underlying motivations of each of those 3 types to get to what you think you might be your core type. And so, I'm really enjoying, having these conversations with people about the Enneagram. And I really appreciate you, Mike, helping me get out the word on the Enneagram just as a powerful tool. I would love if everybody had that in their toolkit and had the vocabulary that Enneagram gives us to be able to have conversations about our interactions with the people in our lives. And so I'm doing Enneagram workshops. I'm helping teams and facilitating them. And, and another really fascinating thing that I'm working on is, there's, we have this big challenge that we're all going to be facing with climate change. And that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that we can apply some of the learnings from the Enneagram in problem solving to just help us work through collectively as humanity to solve the climate crisis as well.
That's really appreciated as well, too. And I like what you said as well, too. And when you said it, I feel like I'm at number 9 right now. So and
Well,
just a couple
thank
of
you.
things, Matt. No problem. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
You know, I could tell you that the single most important thing I've ever learned in my adult life is the Enneagram.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And so I'm really appreciative of my Enneagram mentor, who brought me, into this world and helped me understand it. And he's still, just very important to me, and we conduct a number of Enneagram workshops together. So I'm really appreciative of Roger for that.
And certainly amazing as well too. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, I suggest that you start, take that first step in your journey of self-discovery and start with the Enneagram. It's a really great tool for that.
And we're going to be loyal to that as number 6. We'll stick to it. We're here
Yeah.
with Matt Schlegel, the author of Teamwork 9.0, professional use of the Enneagram here on the Mike Wagner Show. Matt, a very big thank you for your time. You're absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact? Where can people purchase or check out your book?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. I really enjoyed the conversation. So you can reach me at my website, which is evolutionaryteams.com. Evolutionary Teams is all one word. And then you can find the book on Amazon, Teamwork 9.0 on Amazon. Thank you.
We certainly do so. Once again, Matt, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Make sure you keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish you all the best, and you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you, Mike.